When we talk about the most beautiful cars of the 1950s, people usually think of Cadillac, Buick, or Chrysler. But there's one name that gets mentioned far less often: the 1953 Studebaker Coupe. Yet it possessed a kind of beauty that left professional designers speechless. It wasn't just a car, it was a design manifesto, a turning point that helped open the era of longer, lower, wider in American automotive styling. And yet, behind that seductive shape lay a series of serious engineering flaws. Flaws that didn't just hurt its reputation, but helped drag the entire Studebaker brand into a downward spiral. In today's video, we're going to uncover 9 shocking truths that made the '53 Studebaker Coupe both a design icon and one of the most painful cautionary tales in automotive history. Number 1. A design so beautiful, it stunned the industry. The 1953 Studebaker Coupe wasn't just another pretty face, it was a styling revolution. At a time when most American cars looked upright, bulky, and almost formal, this car showed up looking like it came from the next decade. Long, low, and effortlessly sleek, it stopped people in their tracks. The design was led by Bob Bourke, working under the legendary Raymond Loewy, one of the most respected industrial designers of the 20th century. Together, they shaped a coupe that didn't just stand out, it redefined what a car could look like. The body tapered from front to rear in a way that felt almost aerodynamic, and for good reason. It was inspired by the smooth, flowing lines of a Lockheed aircraft. This wasn't imitation, it was innovation. The '53 Studebaker didn't follow the styling trends of the era, it started them. Before GM, Ford, or Chrysler ever embraced the longer, lower, wider philosophy, Studebaker had already carved it into steel. Number 2. The beginning of longer, lower, wider. At just 56.3 inches tall, the 1953 Studebaker Coupe sat more than 7 inches lower than the average American car of its time. And that made all the difference. In an era when most cars looked upright and boxy, the Studebaker hugged the ground with a stance that felt sleek, modern, and almost European. This wasn't just a styling choice, it was a philosophy, one that quietly kicked off a movement that wouldn't fully bloom until a decade later. When GM's Bill Mitchell introduced his longer, lower, wider design language in the 1960s, the world took notice. But Studebaker? They were already there in '53. That low profile wasn't just for looks, it changed how the car moved through space. The proportions felt balanced. The roofline flowed effortlessly into the rear deck. Even standing still, the car seemed to stretch forward. While the Big Three were still building tall sedans with upright grilles, Studebaker delivered something that looked like the future, quietly, confidently, and far ahead of its time. Number 3. Design details that left a lasting mark. The '53 Studebaker didn't just impress with its silhouette, it was packed with small, styling cues that made a big impact. Up front, the car wore a split grille with twin jet-like intakes, giving it a bold, almost aircraft-inspired face. On the driver's side, the word Studebaker was proudly spelled out. On the passenger side, the model name, Champion or Commander, finishing the look with a modernist flair. The V8 models featured a distinctive V emblem with 3 pointed blades, which drew so much attention that Mercedes-Benz actually protested the design. And for good reason. It was sharp, clean, and unmistakably futuristic. Along the body sides, subtle sculpted coves gave the car a sense of motion and grace. That detail would later inspire the first-generation Chevrolet Corvette, proof that Studebaker's ideas didn't go unnoticed in Detroit. Even the wheel covers stood out, simple, cone-shaped designs that were elegant in their restraint. Decades later, AMC would echo them on some of its late 70s models. Out back, a thin blade of chrome traced the rear fenders, while the tail lights floated separately from the bumper, a cost-saving compromise that still managed to look deliberate. Number 4. From dream car to production reality. Believe it or not, the 1953 Studebaker Coupe was never meant to be a production car. Not at first. It started as a show car concept, something to explore new ideas and push the boundaries of what a future Studebaker could look like. The goal was to dream big, not worry about budgets or deadlines, but time and money changed everything. As delays mounted and Studebaker's finances tightened, management made a bold decision: turn the show car into the real thing. The styling mock-up, originally just for display, suddenly became the foundation for the company's next major release. The final design was chosen in a unique way. Two top designers, Bob Bork and Bob Koto, were each assigned one side of a full-scale clay model. They sculpted their visions, left side versus right, and Bork's clean, elegant lines won out. What began as an internal styling experiment quickly became Studebaker's most iconic shape. It wasn't refined through focus groups or mass-market testing. It was born from instinct, competition, and the pure love of form. Number 5. A small V8 that couldn't keep up. For all its bold design, the 53 Studebaker Coupe came with a powertrain that fell a little flat. Under the hood sat a 232 cubic inch V8, producing just 120 horsepower. Compared to Cadillac's 331 cubic inch V8, it was clearly underpowered. But there was a reason for it. Studebaker wasn't chasing top speed. They were chasing fuel efficiency. The engine was designed to be economical, not explosive. With a modest 7-to-1 compression ratio, it sipped gas better than many of its competitors, but at a cost. That beautiful, low-slung coupe, it took about 15 to 16 seconds to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour. And while that might have been acceptable in a family sedan, it felt painfully slow in a car that looked like it belonged on a racetrack. The engine wasn't bad. It just wasn't built to match the car's image. It was quiet, conservative, functional, but wrapped in a body that screamed performance. Expectations were set too high. Number 6. Clever engineering that few noticed. Studebaker may have missed the mark on raw power, but they didn't lack for ingenuity under the hood. In fact, the 53 Coupe packed in a few clever engineering tricks, most of which went unnoticed by the average buyer. For one, Studebaker worked with Borg-Warner to develop a mechanical power steering system. That's right, not hydraulic, but mechanical. The design used internal discs driven by the engine's crankshaft pulley to provide assist when turning. It was complex, experimental, and ultimately abandoned. But it showed how far Studebaker was willing to go to innovate. Then there was the offset air cleaner, positioned to one side instead of centered. Why? Because the car's ultra-low hood line left no room for traditional setups. It was a smart workaround, and one that Chrysler would later adopt on some of their own low-slung models in the late 50s. None of these ideas made headlines, but they reflected a key truth. Studebaker was serious about marrying design and function. They weren't just building something pretty, they were trying to make it work, no matter how tricky the packaging got. Number 7. A beautiful body built on a weak foundation. For all the care that went into the body and styling of the 53 Studebaker Coupe, what sat beneath it was far less impressive. The car rode on what was known as a cowbelly frame, a design that simply wasn't strong enough to handle the demands of a modern V8. The moment the engine was dropped in, the chassis began to flex. The body and frame didn't align properly, leading to gaps, creaks, and constant adjustments. Instead of redesigning the frame, Studebaker came up with a temporary fix. Rubber shims made from old tire material, wedged between the frame and the body to even things out. It didn't inspire confidence. Drivers of the time had a saying, "The doors talk to you," referring to the rattles, squeaks, and flexing sounds that echoed through the cabin every time the car hit a bump or rough road. It was a shame, really, because while the car looked like it belonged on a show stand, it felt, at times, like it was held together with tape and hope. In the end, that weak foundation became one of the car's most enduring flaws, a beautiful shell, riding on shaky ground. Number 8. Cost-cutting that cost too much. If the weak frame was the 53 Studebaker's Achilles heel, then its build quality was the final straw. As beautiful as the car looked, the way it was put together often told a different story. One of the worst offenders, the door latches. In a decision that now seems unthinkable, Studebaker's chief engineer allegedly approved a cheaper latch design, reportedly 15 cents less per unit, after receiving kickbacks from the supplier. The result? Doors that wouldn't stay closed over rough railroad crossings or bumpy roads. In some cases, they simply popped open. And that was just one example. From loose trim to uneven panel gaps, the entire assembly process felt rushed and underfunded. What buyers saw in the showroom was a car full of promise. But what they got on the road was something that rattled, shifted, and slowly eroded their trust. And the numbers reflect it. In 1953, Studebaker sold around 170,000 units. By the end of 1954, that number dropped to just 81,000, more than 50% gone in a year. Number 9. A masterpiece that came at a cost. Today, the 1953 Studebaker Coupe still holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. Its design has stood the test of time. Clean examples, especially the hard-top coupes, can fetch up to $30,000 at auction. It's admired not just as a car, but as a piece of rolling sculpture. But for all its beauty, the market tells a different story. Standard models, sedans, or pillar coupes rarely break $20,000. And there's a reason. Behind that elegant body lies a weak frame and a disappointing driving experience. The looks may be timeless, but the flaws never aged well. And more importantly, the car never did what Studebaker needed it to do. It didn't save the company. In fact, it may have accelerated its decline. The high hopes of 1953 were followed by plummeting sales in 1954, and from there, it was a slow unraveling. Missteps in design, engineering, and management left a company too small and too fragile to recover. The 53 Studebaker was a masterpiece, but it came at a price. And sadly, that price was the beginning of the end for one of America's most ambitious automakers. The 1953 Studebaker Coupe is proof that beauty alone can't carry the weight of a dream. It was a car that captured hearts at first glance, yet quietly reminded us that design without durability and vision without execution can only go so far. For all its elegance, it couldn't outrun its flaws, and it couldn't save the company that built it. But maybe that's what makes it unforgettable. What about you? Do you admire the imperfect beauty of this car? Have you ever seen one in person? Or maybe even driven one? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If this journey through history moved you, don't forget to Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you won't miss the next forgotten legend waiting to come back to life. Every classic has a story, and we're just getting started.